It started when I built my first bass traps. I was in a different apartment at the time and I was making music in my bedroom. I decided to build some bass traps to see if I could get a more even low-end sound from the bedroom. I did notice a small improvement. It wasn't much, but it was about the best I could do with the limited space I had at the time. A couple of years later, I found myself in a new apartment with a dedicated room for my music studio, and so it was time to finally make use of the entire room and build some more bass traps. I covered the old bass traps with a new fabric, which both looked nicer and had better acoustic qualities than the original fabric. The new bass traps were the same design as the old ones, which was basically just a large wooden frame with a huge chunk of glass wool inside. I made them with a nice thick timber so that I could sit them on top of each other in the corners of the room. And that brings us to the wall panel. The apartment I'm in is a rental, which makes things a little bit more complicated. I can't actually drill, screw or nail anything into the walls or ceiling. Normally you would create acoustic panels just by making a timber frame and then putting the glass wool inside and wrapping it in fabric. However, for my panels, I'm planning to attach them to the walls with adhesive hooks, which means they need to be extremely lightweight. This is all the pieces needed to create one panel. That problem is multiplied for the ceiling panel, and I think I'm going to actually need to come up with some kind of different plan for the ceiling panel because I don't think I'll be able to create something light enough to just stick it onto the ceiling without it falling on my head. So, I've come up with something that is in between that I think is going to work really well, I hope. It uses some very lightweight pieces of timber that are reinforced by some MDF panels. So that took me about 3 hours because I have no idea what I'm doing. But now that that's done, I've got some nice little pieces of MDF here. So now I just need to start building the panels and see if it works. So we have these long pieces, then we have these short pieces, then we have these MDF panel pieces. Technically I should probably be pre-drilling this so the wood doesn't split. This needs to be really straight, otherwise bad things will happen. Yep, there's a big crack down the middle. Fantastic. We have split the wood. Fun times. So now that we have some of the frames assembled, we can start putting more of this together. But first, I need coffee. Small change in plans. I'm going to add these onto the panel that will basically hold the glass wool back from the fabric. These little pieces are what is going to give a bit of space from the back wall. If this seems overly complicated to you, it's probably because it is. And I believe the drill is out of battery. Now this will sit against the wall like that with a small space. I'm making the 5th panel now, and then I need to make the ceiling panel, which is going to be a little bit different, and it's taken me ages to get these finished. It should probably be way quicker, but that's part of the fun, so who cares. So this is the finished ceiling panel. Slightly different. There's one extra piece of wood through the center, and this is there so that the glass wool can sit on that without pressing up against the fabric. So I'm going to cut the fabric up and get that ready for the wall panels. Then another important part of the studio is also how it feels in the studio, not just what it sounds like. Of course, sound is like a very important part, but if I'm going to be making a lot of music in there, I want it to feel comfortable as well. And I think the space that you're in is very important, because if you're in a space where you don't feel very comfortable, of course that's going to affect how well you can really kind of dive into your creativity and dive into your imagination. So it's been a few days now since I last worked on the panels, and that's just because I needed to wait for a few of the materials that I ordered online. So now everything else has arrived, and now I'm going to start installing the lighting for all of the panels. I've always had a bit of an interest in color psychology, and I like the idea that the colors around us, in the world around us, can influence our emotions. And I think it's really cool how we can, in a way, have the external world interacting with our internal world. So of course color was something that I wanted to put a lot of thought into for the studio upgrade. I kind of like the idea of being able to change my emotion depending on what type of emotion I want to be creating from. So some of the lighting is going to go behind this bass trap in the corner here. Basically, I want to create a studio that not only sounds great, but I want it to be a space where I just stop thinking about the outside world and I can really dive into my imagination and get as creative as possible. And if I can influence the colors in the room, then maybe I can influence the way I'm feeling internally. Maybe that will allow me to create music differently than I otherwise would, or approach a project from a different perspective. So I've made some wrong measurements, so now I'm going to have to unscrew this, remeasure the frame and re-drill some new holes and set this up again. It fits. I saw some suggestions to use polyester wadding and then put the fiberglass over top of it. The polyester wadding stops any of the glass fibers falling down through the fabric and onto you, which stops you from breathing it in or getting fiberglass on your skin, something like that. So now that I'm seeing that frame up there, I think it could look a lot better. So I just went out to buy some new fabric and I'm going to make a quick modification to that frame. By far the biggest DIY project I've ever taken on, but I can finally say it's finished. And to be honest, I couldn't be happier with the result. It came with quite a few challenges that I didn't expect, but in the end, it feels so much more rewarding knowing that I built all of this with my own hands. I have an app that I can use to control the colour of the lighting behind the panels. I can also control the colour of the lamps behind the monitor. When I started this project, my goal was to create a space that didn't feel like I was in a space at all. That made me forget completely about the space I was in, so that I could just be in the moment with my thoughts, my imagination, just create music. And I think that's exactly what I've done. So I guess it's time to make some music.